Some people write a book because they have a dream to do so. Figuratively, of course. They can envision a world where their name is on a book and they are making an impact with it. Well, I never had that type of dream. Nope. Instead, I actually had a literal one. A literal dream put me on this journey to write a book, which later took me on the journey to help authors around the world market theirs. And this week, in celebration of the launch of my third book, Make Your Author Impact, I wanted to share with you a bit about how I became an author from a dream. Hey, I'm Stephanie Feger, and Empower is my middle name. Well, not really, but it should be. I believe that empowered people empower people, and I'm obsessed with empowering you, the nonfiction author, with impactful marketing strategies to help you take your important message and share it with those who desperately need it and want it and will buy it. As the owner and chief strategist of the Empower PR Group and the author of 3 books myself, I have merged my love for reading books and writing books and marketing books to help nonfiction authors with laser-focused strategies and tactics to write books that sell, promote books to those who need and want them most, and build meaningful businesses from empowering messages. Think of this as your one-stop shop for marketing insights from an author who has been there, who has done that, and who understands exactly where you are. So get your pens ready because I am ready to empower you. This is the Empowered Author Podcast. This week is a special one over here as Make Your Author Impact released. That is the 3rd book I have had the opportunity to write and is such a blessing. So because it's a special week, it calls for a special podcast pop-up season where I'm sharing with you all the things I haven't fully shared before, at least not in this setting. Nearly every time I meet someone who hears what I do, I get swooped back to a time when books weren't in my daily vocabulary. I had lots of dreams of climbing the corporate ladder a bit while loving the job that I was doing along the way. I had dreams of what my family would one day become. And none of those dreams were in alignment with what is actually real today. And let me tell you, today is better than I could have ever dreamed. Even though it was a literal dream, that is what got me here. Speaking of that dream, it was a gift to me, and today I'd love to offer it to you as a gift as well. I don't know about you, but I am someone who dreams very vividly. My husband always makes fun of me because I wake up in the morning inevitably telling him, Corey, oh my goodness, can you imagine what I dreamed? In the beginning of our marriage, he would have said, no. And now he's like, oh, who knows what's going to come out of your mouth because he knows I dream in color. My husband and I must have been watching way too much reality TV because one night I closed my eyes and awoke within my dream on a scene of a show like America's Got Talent or American Idol or some other reality TV show like that. Obviously, you can tell what we had been watching. Now, if you know me today, this might surprise you, but I awoke in this dream as one of the judges on this show. And I wasn't one of the nice ones. I was a Simon Cowell type judge. Yes, I was the person who stood between individuals' dreams and their reality. And I was the only sole judge to share if they were able to move forward in this competition. I don't remember if there were any other guests except this one. And I remember him vividly. I remember him because he was a scrawny kiddo with blonde hair. And I giggle now because my youngest is probably that child. I remember the young boy walked out on the stage and he had a canvas and an easel. He put his canvas up on the easel, stretched it out, was very proud, pulled out his paints. And the moment he took the first brush stroke, I knew it was a no-go. I was going to have to share with him. It was bad news. In fact, I remember thinking I'm going to have to tell him to not quit his day job because this would not replace it, even though he was too young to have a day job. As he painted, he turned around and looked at me, and I shared with him that this was the end of the road. No, sorry, you would not be moving forward in the competition. Now, if you have watched any of these reality shows, you likely know how people react when they get that news. Usually it is one end of two ends of the hot mess express spectrum. They're either a crying puddle, frustrated and so sad that people who had been lifting them up in life were probably not in alignment with what the judge in the reality was. Or they are so frustrated that they start screaming expletives and get kicked off the show. But very rarely you see people in the middle who take it like a champ. This young boy obviously was one of those. I expected him to be frustrated, stomp off the stage and move on, but instead, after I delivered the news, he turned around, grabbed his canvas, looked at me and smiled. He then gifted me his artwork, and he said, very simply, "That's okay. I just hope you color something pretty today." And then I awoke. I remember telling my husband about the dream, and throughout the day, I just couldn't shake it. Such a simple dream, such a weird dream to me, but there was something I was supposed to get out of it. I remember getting on the instant message system we had at my corporate job, and I would chat with some of my coworkers about this dream, trying to figure out what it meant. I'm sure all of them thought I was a bit loony because I couldn't stop. I'd start every meeting that I had talking about it. Yes, it was one of those. I even pulled out a book my mom had gotten me when I was a kid on understanding your dreams. So apparently, vivid dreams have always been a part of my genetic DNA. I had contemplated throughout the day, what was it in my life I was trying to juggle or decide between? If I presented in this dream as a judge, maybe I was up against trying to make a decision. I was weighing some options, but that wasn't the case. And it wasn't until halfway through the day, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh my gosh, Stephanie, like most things in life, this particular dream isn't about you. Maybe it's meant to teach you something instead. Instead, at that point, I pivoted and I stopped thinking about me as the judge and I started to think of the young boy who was doing something he loved and getting not so great news. Color something pretty today is what he said to me. And at that moment, I realized it wasn't just what he said, but it's what he did that mattered. You see, we live in a world where many of us think there's only one way, one process, one journey or road to get from point A to point B. And let me tell you, the moment that I had children, I learned there are at least three ways, Eli, Lindy, and Luke's way to get from point A to point B, but there's millions. Some of those roads are straight paths. Some of them are rocky. Some have hills and valleys. And this young boy turned around and smiled at me, reminding me that just because I said it was a no did not mean that it was a no for him. In fact, he used that as ammunition to get better, to move forward, to try again. He didn't stop. If he wasn't merely a figment of my imagination, I bet that young kiddo really giving some of the classical painters a run for their money. Because see, he saw it as an opportunity. He shifted his perspective and realized the only thing that could stop him from moving forward was not somebody giving him feedback, but was him and how he took that feedback. And he didn't just that day sit with that himself and say, yes, thank you for that. I'm going to move forward and my life is going to be lovely. Instead, he gifted it back to me. I hope you color something pretty today. The moment that I realized kind of the essence of this dream, it was truly a shift in my life. You can talk to a lot of people who were in my life back then, and they probably could have seen the earth shake too, because I stopped seeing things as a one way you could do it or the only way. I stopped letting feedback become a hurdle, and instead I realized there's multiple ways to do it, and everything in life is impacted by perspective. I also started to realize that our lives are really a collection of moments. And every moment that we have is a moment that's like a link on a chain or a link in our thread building our own life's tapestry. Now, some of our moments aren't so great. I am not a Pollyanna. I promise you. I don't live in the clouds. I live firmly rooted here on earth. But I do believe that we can control our reactions and our responses to the things that happen in our life. There are a lot of things you can't control. Like you can't control if it rains today. You can't control if you win a soccer game. You can't control if you get that job promotion. You can't control if somebody cuts you off when you're driving down the road. You can't control a diagnosis. You can't control the loss of a loved one or a job. There are so many things in life you truly can't control. In fact, I've come to realize the only thing you can control is your reactions and your responses to them. Color Today Pretty became a cornerstone in how I saw the world and in how I saw myself. I awoke from that dream with a charge, and that charge was to change my life. What a lot of people don't know is when I got that charge, I had to sit with it for a while because realizing that you're in control of your reactions and responses is a little heavy and a little frustrating. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I don't want to know that I can control that. While I was sitting in that, I found solace in writing. In fact, I don't always tell everybody this, but I'm excited to tell you all that what I started to realize after that dream happened was I needed to capture things in a way that I could remember them for days that were not so colorful. I would wake up in the middle of the night during that time of my life, probably with pregnancy insomnia. And it would be like there were things heavy on my heart and in my life and in my mind that I needed to get out. Now, I am a woman of deep faith, and I firmly believe that God was telling me, Stephanie, we need to have a chat. I've shared with you in a dream a charge I have for you, but there are things you need to work out yourself. I sat down on my computer many days, closed my eyes, and I put my hands on the keyboard and I said, God, what is it that we need to talk about? And little would I know behind the scenes, about 4 or 5 years in the making, I was sharing conversations with God, and He was talking to me and through me while writing. He was gifting me with this charge to evaluate how life was happening around me, how I got to react to it. He was helping me gather my own markers and charcoal and watercolors so that I could choose to color my days pretty too. It wasn't until later when a dear friend of mine and I had a chit chat when we had a feeling we might be impacted by a corporate layoff that she shared with me she really saw me as somebody who maybe should be writing. I remember thinking, what a joke that was. Are you kidding? There's no money in blogging, which is what she had charged me to do. And instead, I saw that as the charge to do it anyway. Sure, maybe there wouldn't be any money in it, but maybe it was the beginning of something I was supposed to do later. Through a serendipitous series of events, beginning that blog, sharing some of my stories, actually became the catalyst to a whole different change in my own life. You see, Color Today Pretty, that particular dream, left me with a charge to not just change myself, but to change everything. It changed how I see the world. It changed how I see myself. It changed what I do and who I serve. It changed me. And I can't imagine my life without it. A book has the power to change the lives of so many people, and Make Your Author Impact is about that. It's about the impact you make on other people as well. But behind every beautiful book is an author whose life is also changed because of it. I remember when I first shared my book and it launched and went live, and I was so incredibly terrified of what people would think. I had shared parts of my story that I hadn't told anybody in my book, and I was worried. I was nervous. I was scared. I was full of fear and excitement. And let me tell you, you can actually embody both at the same time. In preparation for the launch of Make Your Author Impact, I found myself this past week reflecting on the impact that my first book had on other people. And I pulled up my Amazon reviews, which I'm very proud of having so many and so many that are so meaningful. And I wanted to share with you some of these reviews that I hadn't read in years, but it reminded me of the impact we make on other people. Here are a few of my favorites. This book allowed me to step back from my hectic life and reflect on the beauty of my faith, family, and friendships. I was nodding my head to a virtual Stephanie in agreement and reflecting on how God works in my own life. I sometimes get lost in the stress of it all, and this book pulled me back to solid ground. I will come back again and again for inspiration and remind myself that God is present in every aspect of my life, and love really does conquer all. An absolutely incredible book on so many levels. Reading each chapter, I felt like I was sitting down over coffee or wine and chatting it up with my BFF. Her book is so real and honest with humor intertwined that it literally made me LOL. I found myself thinking through the pages as I read them, oh yeah, me too. Or interesting, I've never thought about it like that way. And I like that. I'm going to have to give it a try in my own life. I feel better equipped to know what actually does really matter versus what only kind of matters, and honestly, what shouldn't matter at all. This is a must read for those young in their spiritual walk and a fresh perspective for those who have been on that journey for a while. Her work will bless you. This book is refreshing for the soul. It has come at a time of my life that my soul needed it. Getting caught up in the daily grind and the stress that comes along with it has changed my perspective in life. Color Today Pretty changes that perception to what really matters in life. I found myself sitting back and enjoying the moment I was in and smiling, soaking in all the laughter, the conversation, the dancing. This book is truly a blessing. This book makes you just feel. As a mother of 3 myself with crazy schedules, never-ending to-do lists, it's easy to just go through the motions and miss what's right in front of you. If you want to feel, you must read this inspirational guide. How many times I have thought to myself, I wish there was a manual on how to navigate life as a wife, as a mom, and in my career. This is the closest you'll get to finding your compass. I couldn't put it down. Read this. It will change your life. Promise. I share those testimonials with you, trying to not cry actually over here. Not because I want to read them again, even though I do, but because I want you to know that behind every testimonial or Amazon review are dozens and dozens of others that aren't written or shared. And what I mean by that is our books make an impact. You make an impact. And it's not something that's quantifiable. It's not something you can acknowledge based on how many reviews you get, how many social media shares you have, how many people tell you. Because books change people to the core, and they change you in the process. Color Today Pretty was the book that pushed me on a life trajectory that was so much different than what I could have ever have literally or figuratively dreamed of. And a book may be doing that for you too. If you are an author who has written a book and you want to make sure that the people who need it know of it, I highly encourage you to dig into Make Your Author Impact. It was written for you because I believe books change people. Books are impactful. Authors are impactful. And I believe that authors have the power and the charge and the purpose to make an impact, an empowered impact. Speaking of empowerment, I hope today, in sharing a little bit more about my story, I've empowered you. And if so, I charge you to do what we do best here. And that's now go and empower others.